Hello again, and welcome to Cooking with Mr. Sockavello. This is the Cooking with Mr. Sockavello holiday special. I'm going to be featuring a very delicious holiday dish, homemade pumpkin pie. And I'm not just talking about opening up a can and making a pumpkin pie. No, we're going to do it all from the seed, if you know what I'm saying. So here's my pumpkin pie. This was probably the best pumpkin pie I have ever ate in my life. It was delicioso. Okay? Now we're going to go through it one step at a time. So, for your pumpkin pie filling, you're going to need 15 ounces of roasted pumpkin puree, which we are going to make. And usually, when I do it, it comes out to about 2.5 to 3 cups. You're going to need a 14-ounce can of sweetened condensed milk, 2 eggs, 1 egg yolk. You're going to need cinnamon. You're going to need some ground cloves, some vanilla extract, a pinch of salt, and some freshly grated nutmeg as well. So, the first step is you want your pumpkins. Now, how are you going to get pumpkins? Well, you have to grow them from the seed. Now, this is what I have done. Was grow all my pumpkins from the seed so I could pick out the absolute best 2 pumpkins to make my pie. Now, after you've got your pumpkins grown, you want to cut them off in October, in mid-October, and then let them ripen up over these next few months. Now, this was one of the pumpkins, and perfectly grown pumpkins. So first you want to cut the stem side off so there's a nice flat surface. Okay, then after you cut the top off, you can cut it directly in half. As you can see with you can cut the top off and then you cut it in half. Then you're going to want to scoop out all the insides, all of the grown stuff, so you just have the husk or the outer shell. Okay, now when you've done that with your both of your pumpkins, you want to coat them with some olive oil, both the insides and the outsides, and place them on a cookie sheet with some aluminum foil because this that molten pumpkin stuff is like really hard to get off, so you want to put it on foil. Now you can cook this in your oven at 400 degrees for about 50 minutes to an hour until the skin or the outer shell is soft and kind of bubbling the outer skin. And you should be able to stick a knife in it very easily without much force. Now, I cooked mine on my barbecue, so they have more of a smoky kind of flavoring, but you can cook them in your oven. So after you cook them on, the 400 degrees for about an hour, they're going to come off and the shells are going to look kind of like they do here. Now the skin is really easy to come off. You can just take a spoon and just kind of peel the outer edge of the skin off, where the inside you can just place directly into a food processor or a blender. So you remove all the skin, any of the burnt edges, trim off, and just get the prime husking into that blender, where you will then puree it into a fine paste. Then I would recommend putting it into a colander with some cheesecloth. Okay, so you take your cheesecloth, fold it up, put it in a colander, add your pumpkin stuff, and then put it into a bowl. And there's a lot of water that's going to come off of this stuff. So you have to do this step or your pie will be way too runny. And you want that inside to be nice and thick. Okay, so after you've drained it thoroughly, let it sit for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then You can put it into the blender, blend it all up into a paste, and then pour it into a measuring cup and get your blender cleaned. Now, for the crust, while that pumpkin puree is sitting in the measuring cup, you could put a piece of cellophane on it and set it aside for now. So, with the crust, you're going to want to add 2 cups of all purpose flour, and you're going to need 1 cup of butter, which is 2 sticks. Now, a good way to do it is cut your butter into little squares. So, you cut it down the middle, flip it, cut it again, and then dice it into small cubes. And you want it to be cold when you're putting it into your flour. So then you add a teaspoon of sugar, a little bit of salt. You throw your butter cubes in, and in my mixing bowl, I use this dough mixer thing, and I just turn it on low heat and let it sit for about 4 or 5 minutes, and then the dough will be made. So then you take your dough and you can put some flour on your cutting board and roll it around into a nice ball where you can also then cover it with cellophane wrap, roll it into a ball, and put it into the fridge for about 30 to 45 minutes. Maybe 10 minutes. I can't remember. Put it in for 20 minutes or so until it cools. Okay? So when it chills the dough, you can then remove it from the fridge into a nice bowl. I can't remember if it was 30 minutes or 10 minutes, but I'll put it on the screen right here. So you put it onto your cutting board with some flour and equally roll it out in all directions until it's about 1/4 of an inch thick. Now, this thickness is key to the success of the recipe. All right? Don't mess around and make it too thin. It will not work if it's too thin. We're doing it a specific way. Okay? So you flour the pie dough, and then you're going to want to fold it in half. Okay? Once you fold it in half, fold it again into a quarter. Pick this dough triangle up and place it into your dish where you can unfold it and it will not tear. And make sure the sides are poking over and everything. Okay, now this is where it gets kind of tricky. You're going to want to get a piece of parchment paper and place it on the inside of the pie dough. Okay? Then you want to put down some uncooked rice or some beans or something um, into the bottom of the pie pan and really pack it down where the corners are secure. Now, the reason for this is if you just bake the dough separately, the middle of the crust will start to rise, and this keeps the middle of the crust from rising too much. Now, I had to trim the edges because the paper caught on fire, but just trim the edges if that's a problem and put a piece of foil on the top. Put it into your oven at 400 degrees for 10 to 15 minutes. Okay? Just until the top starts to cook. Okay, then you can remove it, remove the rice and the paper, put it back in for another 10 minutes, and cook the bottom of the crust. Now, it's not pretty, but it's going to taste really good. So, after I have cook the outer edges and the bottom, and I remove it from the oven. You want it to sit until it is room temperature. Okay? Where then after, we're going to take our pumpkin puree, put it back into the mixing bowl, add a can of the sweetened condensed milk. Okay, then whip it all up until it looks like nacho cheese, kind of. Okay? Now, next, add your 2 eggs and your egg yolk to this mixture and get it mixing. When that's mixed up, you can start by adding your ground cinnamon. It says, 1.5 teaspoons, but not all cinnamon or spices are equal. If you're buying store brand, you're gonna need a lot more. So I don't really measure it out. I just shake it in. until I think it's good. With the cloves, they're very strong, so I would advise just sprinkling some into the palm of your hand. And then when you've got about how much you think you want, you don't want a giant teaspoon. You want, a small quarter of a teaspoon in your hand. Sprinkle that in. With the nutmeg, that's not going to hurt too much, so you can go ahead and sprinkle a liberal amount of that in. And then I continuously add cinnamon until the pie is kind of colored, with like the dark speckly of the cinnamon and the stuff. Also add in 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. I just pour some in, but you don't want too much. So that is your pie filling. You're gonna want to mix that really good, and then it looks like a nice cheese dip when you're doing it. And it probably also depends on how ripe your pumpkins are, the darkness of the squash that you're using. And you want to make sure you have the pumpkin pie kind of pumpkins, the little sugar sweet pumpkins. Okay? So then after you've mixed that, pour it all into your pie dish until it is up to the top. I didn't know if it was going to bake over, so I put it on a piece of foil. If you take the water out, it shouldn't bake over. But if the water is in there, the water will kind of boil and boil over your pie. So this will keep it separating that water will it makes it a lot thicker where it won't boil over. Rub it against the counter a couple times to try to get the air bubbles out. Then you're gonna want to bake it at like 325 for about an hour. Maybe you could do 350 for 45 minutes. And when you can insert a knife in and it comes out nice and clean, the pie is done. And don't think it's burnt or anything. It was perfect, perfect, perfect pie. Okay, now look at this right here. If you can see that dough, that's what the arrow I want you to see is the thickness of the dough on the bottom. It is a true pie. It doesn't come out in little chunks. The pie pieces come out like it's lasagna or something. Perfect, perfect crust. And that is the super key to the pie. You make this and people will ask you, how did you figure out how to make this pie? It is so, so good. Okay, now another thing I like to have with this pie, look at that crust. Look at the crust. Look at it. It is perfection. Okay, now next. You're going to want to also, when you're getting this stuff, make sure to get yourself a pint of heavy whipping cream. You could use Hermes organic, only organic whipping cream, or Prairie Farms. Okay? Or any kind of whipping cream, it doesn't really matter. So you want to put, like, if you're going to serve the whole pie at once, you can just make all of it and pour all your whipping cream into your mixer and then add like a cup of powdered sugar if you're going to do all of it. I would recommend if you're only going to have 2 pieces or 3, just pour about a third of the carton of the heavy whipping cream in, or half, and then it's like, a half a cup for half of a box of whipping cream and powdered sugar. You're going to want to put like half a cup of powdered sugar in, add a couple drops of vanilla, and turn it on low whisk. Okay, leave it on low whisk for about 2 to 3 minutes, and then kick the speed up to like medium or high, and whip it for another 30 seconds to a minute, and the cream should form nice and thick. And that also tops it off. You can also sprinkle a little nutmeg on the top, a little cinnamon. If you want to get fancy, you could mix a little nutmeg and cinnamon into a dish and pinch that on top of the cream. It will be a pumpkin pie. You will never forget how good this pumpkin pie is. Super, super delicioso, if I can say so myself. This is the best pumpkin pie I have ever had. Period. All right. That is Mr. Sockavello's homemade pumpkin pie from the seed. And I hope you're having a Merry Christmas, and I hope you can prepare this for your family. You can still get those little pumpkins at the store. You should be able to get them at the store probably well into January. So if you want a challenge, it does take a long time. It took like 4 hours, but it was super worth it. And if you've got kids, they will remember that always. Making the pie from pumpkins. And it's a good lesson to learn. You can also make the crust and use that for a chicken pot pie or some kind of any other kind of pie. It's a really good crust recipe also. So thank you guys so much for watching my pumpkin pie video. I'll see you with the next recipe.